My name's Doug McCarthy. I've been working in special effects and armoury for film for about 28 years now, and very soon I will be with the lost world of moving props.
Right.
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Right, now, I've just had an update come through for Zoom and downloaded it and installed it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm on my phone here. So as you can see, everything's backwards, but
That's fine. We got something working.
yeah, better than nothing, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're on.
Right.
So how are you? How you been?
Yeah,
You all right?
yeah, very good. Yeah. It's Sunday evening, so back to work tomorrow.
Oh, I know. Like 48 hours off isn't enough, is it?
Generally not.
No. Awesome. Yeah, I think Dante will probably jump on at some point when he's. I think he's on his way home now.
Right.
Yeah, and then he'll be on with us.
I saw his note. Yeah.
So yeah, shall we begin? Shall we start talking?
Yeah, great. Yeah, go ahead. Fire it.
Why don't you tell us what job roles you have and what you do? Because you work in the film industry, don't you?
Yes, I do. I've been working in special effects and armory, and also some effects side on vehicles as well, in film, television, pop videos, commercials. Since 1995, I got into the mainstream of it. So yeah, it's been a very,
Nice.
very exciting.
So so you do special effects. So what kind of special effects do you do, and what effects have you done in films or shows?
Right. Okay. Well, I do physical effects. It's anything that happens in front of camera, so the actors and everybody can react to it. So we do things like weather conditions. We do rain, wind, fire, snow. We do mechanical rigs, which is one of my main things.
Nice.
And car stunts, rolling cars, blowing them up. We do bullet hits, explosives, buildings collapsing, all sorts of things. Anything that's basically needed in the script is what we try and achieve.
Okay, brilliant. So are you allowed to tell us about how you do some of those things, like obviously like firing bullets and making those effects, or is that all top secret and you can't say?
Yeah, no, I mean, most people know, and I think you can find virtually everything we do probably on YouTube these days. For instance, a basic bullet hit is we have a special pad underneath, and the way I do it, I attach it to a vest. And this is something that a very good friend of mine showed me many years ago when we were doing Rambo. And his system I've used ever since because it works very, very well. I use sorbothane rubber, which is an impact rubber which is used in bulletproof vests. The harder you hit it, the better it reacts and stops the shock. And then we sometimes use a small metal plate which has a small detonator inside it, which we call squibs, because detonator sounds a little bit scary. And we use different sizes and different charges for different type of bullet hits. But on top of that, you tape on a blood bag, and then it's all put on, and then the top clothing is prepared and weakened in the area where the director wanted the hits. And then that is just laid over the top. We put a tiny little bit of spray on it, spray glue, like a spray mount, and a little bit of tissue, and that holds it to it. So when it's detonated, when it's actually activated, the clothing hasn't moved. So for instance, if you were going to put the hit here, it hasn't done that. So it stays with it. And you pretty much can't see it if it's done well. And when it goes off, obviously it leaves a big hole. And the blood comes out, that's how it works.
Nice. So when it goes off, does it hurt the actors? Is there a little bit of an impact on them, or is it all the pressurized?
No,
all go forwards straight outwards?
Yeah, it all goes forwards, and we test them on ourselves well before, and it's a long, well-tested way of doing things in the effects industry. People do it slightly different ways and do their blood bags differently and so on and so forth, but the actual charge and how it works is pretty much the same all over the world, really. And no, nobody's ever hurt, but we do quite often give small pushing wax ear defenders, because it is quite a loud crack when it goes. Again, it's something an actor or a stuntman can react to, because they know it's gone bang.
Nice. Because I mean, I work in the pyrotechnics industry as well. So we use laptops
Yes,
and
I
wire
know, yeah,
computers. Do you
so,
use software in that to detonate it, or is it?
generally not. No, we use there's a few systems out there. The one that I prefer is one called Igneous, and it's a microwave link, which is locked to transmitter and receiver. And I used my friend's one actually, Jody, on Fast and Furious 6 for the tank firing, and the tank was thundering down this piece of motorway, unused motorway in Tenerife, and I've got to fire the gun. And he's getting further and further and further away. And the range on these, they say, is around about 100 metres. Well, it worked over 250 metres away. It still had the link. So that he did go.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're good systems.
Awesome. So obviously, you just mentioned you're on Fast and Furious 6. So can you tell us what a general day on set was for you? Obviously, working on such a big, high-profile film like that as well.
Yeah, it was a good chance for me. It was my first job for Joss Williams, who unfortunately he left the mortal coil about a year or so ago. Excellent supervisor, and a very, very nice man. And it was my first job working with him or for him. So it was a bit of a, got to play good here. And I was taken on as to do preparations for that, and it was a lot of that was testing the pyro. And then they asked if I would go out to Tenerife and maybe run the workshop, which actually my friend Jody did, and I went on to second unit, which is all the stunts, close-ups, that kind of thing, for Steve Hamilton, who I'd previously worked with on 3 Harry Potter. He was our workshop supervisor. And that was great. So yeah, a day on set was many things. It could be just doing wet downs, making the road wet, to the operation of flipping cars and all sorts of things. And yeah, it was a busy film and a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah, because in Fast and Furious they're known for their big car explosion scenes, and there's always cars flipping over. So how do you? I mean, are the cars are they just a shell of a car that you flip, or are they still full cars? How do you flip a car with an explosion?
It depends on the car, actually. There was one section, they had a company come in, Bickers Action, who are really good friends of ours, and that's their speciality, is doing car stunts on set. So they were doing the cannon charges, which flipped the cars over. And there was one scene where I had a guy called Henry, who he looked like this kind of quite old American Red Indian, Native American, long grey hair, and he was a very big tall guy, lovely chap. And he's driving one car, and the gag is there's 2 cars going along, one's here, and this one is attached. What we do, we attach them together. So he's driving this car, okay, and this car is going to go bang and backflip, and this car will go bang and go over while he's in it. And that's on 2 cannon charges. We put them together with some bits of timber in some steel tubing, and we wrapped a high explosive around those. And at the set point, he hit the button, and all this happens at once. So he's driving down the road, and the charges go bang just a fraction of a second before the cannon charges go. So his car went like that, and this car went backwards, and it was to impose that the tank had hit just in front of them at the shell going off, and it worked a treat. And he did the whole roll, got out of the car, and he's just sitting there on the side, having another cigarette. And I spoke to him, and I said, how long have you been doing this then, Henry? And he said, well, I did a lot of the jumps in Dukes of Hazzard. So the old TV show. He'd been doing it a long time. He knew his stuff. Yeah. So it's a big team effort. You've got the guys doing the cannon charges and their systems in the car. Our pyro had to tap into their systems. We do the pyro on that, and then obviously you've got your stunt driver. We've all got to work together very closely to get that to happen. So we did one test on the motorway and then did it for real, and you see it in the film. So yeah, it was a nice shot.
So I imagine you must do an awful lot of prep work to do all this. There must be a lot of meetings beforehand and like choreography, basically.
Well, generally speaking, the supervisor will do the meetings and sometimes take his number two along, but he will then decide how we're doing it and what we're going to do, and then pass it over to the workshop and the prep team, and then we will then look at what he wants, and then we'll try a few different variations, and he might say, well, that one's the best one, let's go with that. So we're testing and video testing all the time, and showing what we can do, and then it depends if our boss likes it, he sends that video to the director, and the director goes, yeah, that's cool, we'll go with that. And that's what we'll then do on the day. So yeah, there is quite a lot of prep to do on it. So I was going to have a little drink.
So obviously, health and safety must be really crazy nowadays. So I got one as well.
Yeah. Well, health and safety, obviously, we've got to have it. Our job is inherently very dangerous. We test things for the stunt guys. You know, we're working with explosives and high compressed gases and fuels and all sorts of things. So yeah, we have to really be careful and really test everything well. And our risk assessments are, you know, quite complex at times. But it's not a problem. It's as long as you follow the rules and everybody listens to it and knows what to expect, and it all works a treat.
So obviously, you mentioned Harry Potter. So what kind of roles did you do in Harry Potter, and work did you get to do in Harry Potter? Because in the UK, I mean, even today, it's such a big franchise, and they've even got the big studios you can go look around as well now.
Yes, yeah. Well, I worked a little bit on the second film. I was working for a company called Artem in Perivale, big special effects and model making company, and we had to do, believe it or not, the smoke from the tailpipe of the flying car and the steam from the train. We had to superimpose that, and we did it all on green screen and against black, and that was used then CG'd on the film. So that's the only bit I did on the second one. But I'd been out working on what's the film, City of Ember in Belfast, and met a chap there that worked on the Potter films, and a guy called Digby Milner who worked on the first Star Wars. Very clever guy. And I got a call, and he said, look, they were looking for some people on Harry Potter's. Do you want to come in? I said, yeah, great. So I ended up working for the amazing John Richardson, who, if you look him up, you'll see what he's done. I mean, he was the supervisor on Aliens and stuff like that, and he goes right back into the 60s. Absolutely genius man to work for. And I was doing like mechanical effects and workshop, basically. So if they need something, we'd make it, and then we would then take it to set and operate it if they wanted us to, or hand it over to the floor guys and they'll sort of do it all. But it's great because you're on and off the set quite a lot. So that was Half-Blood Prince, and I was only on that for a few months because I then went off to do. I was asked to be the workshop supervisor on for the Armory department for Richard Hooper on Prince of Persia. So I was 6 months in Morocco doing that. And when I came back,
wicked.
John said, we're doing 2 more Potters. Do you want to do the last 2? So I did. I pretty much went almost all the way through the last 2 films. So that was good.
No. So what kind of roles and responsibilities do you have in the Armory? I mean, is that real guns and stuff like that in an armory for films, or what is that?
Well, it can be, yeah. But Prince of Persia was swords and sandals, as we call it. It was all shields, swords, bows, and we just had to make sort of 600-700 of them and get them out on the set. You know, it was a lot to do. All aluminium blades. We had a team of guys and model makers making all the beautiful handles and moulding them. And I was responsible mainly for the assassins' weapons. That was my kind of project. I don't know if you've seen the film.
Yeah.
There's a couple of the assassins. One guy's got these blades that come out of his hand that look a bit like Wolverine. It's on a metal buckler. So I had to make that mechanical. And for him to do that, all he had to do was stretch his hand. And as he stretched his hand, it triggered and these blades came out. And the other hand was looked like a giant flick knife. And I used to call him Knife and Fork Man, which didn't go down too well, but that's just the best way of explaining who he was. And there was another guy that had spikes that had to come out of his armour, come out of his arm here, and then different parts of his knee. One came up from his knee here for fighting with, and he had I made a backpack for him with a small compressed air cylinder and a motor drive and these batteries, and he had two little things on his hands, and he had these bucklers on his arms which shot darts, but I just filled it up with dust, so every time he pulled the triggers it would you see dust coming out. Now I found some notes here that I did for a lecture I did, and I think there might well be some pictures of that. I don't know. I'll have to dig through it all. There's so much here, unfortunately. But while I'm here, there's a couple of other bits here. Hopefully you'll be able to see those. These knives, that's an original working knife, which were blocked down. This one here was on a blood pump, a syringe, and this one had a squeezy handle. I had to hand file these. I machined that one, I hand filed that one. And it was to cut the guy's stomach open in Annihilation. I can see it now. The other thing, this one here is a small, it was basically a full-size avocet made out of foam. I carved it out of foam and painted it, and I had to make 6 or 7 of them to shoot out of an air cannon from this Peregrine. That was quite good fun. And also at the top, you might be able to see the darts there. These were fired from the crossbow on this Peregrine, and I had a laser sight so I could fire them actually into wood. They had 2 little pins. They were low pressure, but the others fired down cables as well. So there was a few variations of things to make arrows hit where they wanted them to go. But yeah, so I just saw that one off the top. I'm just trying to find the Prince of Persia stuff, but can't seem to see it at the moment. But yeah, carry on. Any other questions, and I'll keep looking as I'm.
I was going to say, like, how do you like mentally create these things? Like, do you have to think of them all yourselves, or do you look at different areas of like history to get the inspiration to make these items?
Yeah. Now, well, with Prince of Persia, Richard Hooper, he was a fantastic armourer. We were working for him, and he had made a lot of sketches of sort of Eastern and Arabic sort of weaponry and Indian weaponry, and we kind of made up shapes that we liked. We made wooden ones to start with, and sort of silvered them all up so they look really quite realistic. And the director then would say yes, no, and oh yeah, I like that one, or this could be Garsib's and a dagger, and that's kind of how it went. So we made a lot of test ones first. Richard had quite a full reign of design on that, which was lovely. We didn't have to work for another designer. Right.
Yeah.
That's the bucklers. Okay. And I made 3 sets of them.
No.
2 of them were practical that had the dust firing out. And the other ones here that you could see on the inside. Where are we there? I made the darts up. We made the darts, and I put them in little brass shells, so it looked like they were shot out on a magazine, just in case you saw under his arm at all.
Yeah.
I'm glad I found the picture now, after all that. So yeah, that was quite nice.
So when you make the daggers and that
special effects and doing well, I made the blades for Dastan's daggers. All the heroes, I had to machine the blades, and some were laser etched. But then we made hundreds and hundreds of background swords as well. We had 2 40-foot container trucks, which we had to rack out and weld all these shelves into. And they were filled with spears and shields and bows. And yeah, there was an awful lot.
Nice. So all these, I mean, are they quite dangerous, some of these weapons, or are they made out of rubber and things, most of them? Or how do you mass produce so many?
Well, we mass produce them out of aluminium, most of them. There are rubber ones done for particular sequences where people are hitting each other and stuff, and they were done by our armory sticky shop. Generally, in special effects as well, we'll have a sticky shop, people doing moulding and casting of different rubbers and breakaway effects and things like that. And we had the same in our armourers as well. Sorry, excuse me, getting a bit of a dry throat again. So yeah, we would produce those, and there was actually a little bit of an issue with it because it was so hot there in Morocco. We were based in Marrakesh, our workshop, and the guys didn't have time to mix the foam before it set. It was very, very difficult to get it mixed and get it in the mould before it went off. It was, we had quite a time with that.
Because I mean, obviously, you as well. Another big film you worked on Prometheus, wasn't it?
Yes, did, yeah. Well, that was a funny story actually. I was working for our team doing a little TV show with up and coming. Just trying to find the pictures, Prometheus ones. They were magicians, basically. It was a magician's show, and it was being filmed at Pinewood. So I was going there to do different coloured explosions of powder, and I was walking outside, and I bumped into Steve Hamilton, who I've worked with on Harry Potter and Fast 6. I said, "Oh, Steve, what are you doing?" Because he lives in Canada.
Nice.
And he said, "Oh, I'm doing the new Alien film." I was like, "No!" And he said, "Yeah, come down to the back lot when you get a minute, and I'll show you what we're doing." So I went down there, of course, and I saw they started building these huge vehicles. And I said, "Anyone else?" He said, "Yeah, when can you start?" I was like, "Yes." So my hobby has always been like drag race, rally driving, all that kind of thing. So I've always been into vehicles, and I'm into World War II vehicles, as you know. I've just got a load of pictures here from Prometheus. I'm just about to dig out and show you. And we built these vehicles, and I was lucky enough to head a team of 4 guys to build the second vehicle, the Hero one, which was lettered RT01. Was the main rover. It had all the Hero inside cab, and also the Hero rear for all the actors could be in when it's driving along. And then my one only had the Hero cab, but it was quicker, so they used it. It was marked up RT02. So while we were there, they just stuck 2 bits of wood over it and wrote a number 1 on it. And you couldn't see it because it's going so fast, but all the long shots were that vehicle. So I've got a few sort of vehicle shots here. This was the first time we drove one at Pinewood, and while the body was still being put on.
Oh, wicked!
So that was out in the rain, and then I've got some other really lovely shots here. I'll leave that one till the end. These are some of the build photographs, and this one's quite a nice one. It shows the sort of things we were having to sort of build on the floor in a tent. And then the fiberglass panels were put on by us, and then it was all sort of painted up at the paint shop. This was my one, RT02. You can't see it very clear here, I'm afraid, because these are prints, but that was it when we arrived in Iceland, and we used my one as a cargo truck and just put all the spares in there. So that's all the boxes and stuff are in the background.
Nice.
And then there's some of the details, the detailing on Prometheus. I still think it should have won the art department Oscar, without doubt, or production design. The details on it was so incredible. Look at that down the bottom here. That was on the seat belts in the cab.
Yeah.
That's all I said. Wayland Industries, and it was incredible, absolutely incredible. And you never see it.
Yeah,
but
they've gone
the
full
detailing
detail
on that film was it was shockingly incredible what they did. When I'd done the vehicles, I went up to the effects shop, and we worked on a few of the bits here, which you can see. Craig did the little flamethrowers. And then the set of this. Now, it's this here. You see in the film, it's like dancing DNA, this black goo. And we did it. It was done by the guys at the workshop with a speaker inside here and a variable sort of sound wave. And it just made it dance. It was like a starch mix.
Oh, wicked.
Stuff. And this was us rigging it in. You can see all the tubes on the floor to make all the black goo leak out of the various pots. And we just buried that in the ground, and it was all done under pressure with a pump up pressure pot basically, and we could control how much came out. And then this was a lovely
Did they all
shot.
have speakers in then? All
this
those?
was taken. No, just the one of them. But that was the last of the shots of the vehicles we took to Iceland.
Wicked.
Yeah, it was a lovely film.
So how fast did they go?
And yeah, thoroughly. Well, we don't know. I didn't have a working speedo, but my one I think was doing 60. I would think at least 60. It was pretty quick.
60.
They were big. The chassis underneath was a Scud missile launcher, but platform basically made in the Czech Republic, and it had a V10 air-cooled diesel engine. So yeah, they were pretty quick.
Nice. Yes, that's crazy. You get to play around these tools on your day's set, and just it's such a different day's work compared to like. I mean, I pack boxes at the minute, and you get to decide where the guns go and the explosives go.
Right. Yeah. It has its moments, and when it's bad, it's horrific. But when it's good, it's incredible. You know, it's like any job. You have good and bad days. But we work very long hours. But you get a lot of reward from it. This thing here, I did a comedy, Sherlock Holmes, and this was a lightweight of a metal one that all worked, and it was thrown by Sherlock onto the back of this old 1912 car, 1908 car that we'd had to get working and drivable, and then he gives it to Watson, and he's dragged down the road on it, and there was a whole sequence filmed, big stunt, the car crashing and blowing up at the end. Wasn't in the film, none of it. Not one section of that was in the film.
No!
When it was a funny section as well. So it happens a lot, you know, and that's why I've got that, because it just means something to me and nobody else.
Yeah.
So
what would you say like the biggest scene that you've got to do?
Probably Gladiator, I would think. The start battle. That was huge. There was 16,000 litres of liquid propane plumbed into the hillside to make the fires. We had to make I think 1,500 fire arrows twice. Me and another guy. And then we did all the smoke in the background and all the fight sequences and people's legs getting hacked off, and it was a really big setup. And it was a lovely job to work on, but it was cold, wet, and then it snowed for real. So we had to then carry on making fake snow for various shots. But yeah, it was quite a scene to see.
Yeah. So obviously as well, another great film that you've got to work on, I was going to ask you about, because you sent me pictures of it before, was Reign of Fire, which is one of my all-time favourite films. It's like one of the best dragon films out there. How did you get involved in that?
Well, again, I was working for Artem, and the job came in, and Chris, the designer, said, "Look, we've got to make this dragon in 8 weeks," and we were like, "Wow!" So it was all carved out of polystyrene, and I had to weld a frame inside it while it was being carved. That was a bit worrying, but we did it all. And basically, we built a big dead dragon that gets shot down, and we had inside it. There was myself, Harry Bryce doing 2 liquids when its head was upside down. There were 2 liquids that came out of the glands in its mouth that pumped, and this was to show how they create the fire. And as they hit the floor, we had a little flame rig in there, like, so that you could see, that's how they do it. But I don't think it was ever seen. We also had James in the back, who was our pneumatics guy, operating the breathing of the rib cage, all moving, and the stomach twitching as it was dying. And then 2 other guys, Dave and Jules, they had a big sort of egg, and you see him cut into the stomach with this really sharp knife, and the guys were like, "Oh Jesus!" You know, when he cut him through, and they force the egg out of the goo, and he gets the egg, and I think you do see that, but you never see it breathing. And we had that all working, but again, it just wasn't seen in the film, which was a bit of a shame.
Oh, crazy! So obviously, how did you do your research to make a dragon? Did you go back looking at various books or other films, or was it just all your own inspiration to put it all together,
no,
the colours
with
and
that,
stuff?
we were given, we were given the design by production. The production designer gave us the shape and size and what the dragon should look like and its colours and everything. So we just worked to those drawings.
Yeah. So obviously, another thing I want to ask, obviously, because you've got all these skills for making things and being really creative, and I mean, what like training and background do you have, like, to obviously get into this kind of industry?
Well, again, that's a bit of a story. I left school in 1983 and was working for Rolls-Royce, which is at Leavesden, which is now Leavesden Studios, and that was on military helicopter engines. I was a fitter, tester, inspector, and I was there for about 6 years. And I left to go and work for a local company doing water treatment. At the same time, I took up drumming, and I joined a band that had a couple of albums already, and then we ended up touring Europe on and off for sort of 3, 4 years. And the company I was with said, as long as you've got all your service visits done and everything's ready, you can have as much time off as you like. So it was great. And then I thought I really wanted to get into special effects. And I met a guy who was an airbrush artist. And I met him after I went to Alien War as well. I don't know if you know about that. I was one of the main Marines, the Colonial Marines in the Alien War, London. And I was there for about just under 2 years. And I was helping run the show as well at that time.
Yeah.
And we had our own effects, and that's what really got me into it. And I met this guy as an airbrush artist, quite a famous guy now. And he said that this company were looking for people with mechanical background and know about cars and custom stuff. So I went down there in my 1928 Chevrolet convertible that I'd built with a big V8 engine. And they said, when can you start? That was it. As simple as that. But it was a massive learning curve because I went from just engineering to learning all the floor effects, the smoke, the wind, the fire, and all that kind of thing. But it was great. I learned a hell of a lot. We used to do London's Burning there, and Soldier.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was good. It was you really learned by being thrown in the deep end. But the guys there were great, and I'm still very friendly with a few of them now. And this shirt I've actually got on, I've been wearing today, Elements Effects, is the company I work for now, and it's two of the guys I worked with back then in 1995. They're great guys, a great company, and we're doing a Disney show at the moment, which just started, a thing called Culprits, which I can't say anything about. It's top secret. It looks like it'll be really good. They've got a lot of TV stuff as well. So it's slightly smaller to the bigger films I did, but I'm really enjoying it. It's more hands-on as well. So
yeah. Because another thing is, you must get to see and meet a lot of celebrities, because obviously details that you introduced me to, and I've had him on the show before. So, which people have you met before? Have you got to know anyone really closely?
I was the second unit special effects supervisor on Brothers Grimm in Prague in 2003. I was working quite closely with Matt Damon, Heath Ledger, Lena Headey, Jonathan Pryce, and I got very friendly with them. And Heath actually DJ'd mine and my friend's birthday party out there. He brought his gear out from LA, and he was the DJ for the night. It was great. And then I bumped into Matt Damon again about 6 or 7 years later. I wasn't working, so now and again I get asked to do specific background stuff for the casting collective. They used to call me up and say, "Oh yeah, you're covered in Japanese tattoos. Could you be in Thor or something like that?" And and then they asked me to do this Monuments Men. They said, "Well, you're an aircraft engineer. This is fantastic." So I was on set, and Matt saw me, and he went over and we had a big chat. And he's another fantastic actor to work with. Really, really got a lot of time for him. Really nice guy. Lena, I didn't get to see again. I went out to do one of the seasons, or part of one of the seasons on Game of Thrones, season 4, I think it was, the big ice wall battle. And she'd already finished all her scenes then, so I didn't get to see her. But she was another lovely lady to work with.
Yeah, another question I really wanted to ask. What was the biggest explosion you've got to do in your career, if you've done one?
Oh, well, it's not just me. It's a whole team of people, and I'm just one person in it. I think the biggest one was probably Prometheus. We did the crashing spaceship, and we had this huge mechanical digger digging 20 foot by 20 foot by 20 foot holes in the side of a volcano, which was a little bit of a worry because that volcano was due to erupt and hadn't gone off yet. So we were all sort of, how much do you reckon it's going to go off today? You know, it was on the book day. It's quite funny. But we had a lot of explosives in there, and yeah, I mean bags and bags of it. And those bangs were huge, but they don't look too big because the size of the shot. But they were quite something. Yeah, I think it's probably those.
Has there been any moments where it has sort of made you step back and worry a little bit, where it's maybe caught you off guard or something?
Generally not. No, we're pretty careful. But London's Burning, our supervisor back then, he was a bit of a boy for that, and we'd be in a building putting smoke out while they've set fire to it, and he goes, "You'll be all right, keep going." You know, it's getting a bit hot in here. So it was a bit worried at the time, but generally speaking, everything's pretty safe. You know, we look after each other.
Yeah, because London's Burning was massive when I was younger. I used to watch it every Sunday, and then we knew it was going to be school the next day. So, I mean, tell us about some days on set of London's Burning, because that's a really big, still British show.
Well, yeah, the biggest one was that I was involved with, I think, was season 7. And it was where the sub-officer is killed. And I had to build this big steel rig, me and a couple of other guys. And he's walking along like a platform. And it was about 6 stories up in an old sugar factory, which had been used on one of the Bond films previously. And as he's walking on it, it starts to collapse. We're pulling these little pistons out, and it starts to drop. And then it goes, and he falls onto what is a big chain link, sort of like 20 foot by 20 foot mesh, and you think, he's landed on that, he's safe, phew, and then it starts to go dink 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 and drop, and he goes again, and we made these big shatter glass roof sections with breakaway wood and glass, and he goes through that and then bang onto the ground, and he's probably dead now. So it was a big sort of build up, but we did 90 foot high flames off the roof of that building as well, and I think they held a record on TV for quite some time. I don't know if it still holds it, to be honest. But we were going through a big drum of kerosene in about 30 seconds on each pump. So it was, it was a lot of fuel.
Whoa, that's mad.
Yeah, and you can feel the
heat.
Was
the heat from that quite intense then?
Oh, yeah. Even when you were a long way off, you could still, yeah. And also,
obviously, looking back at your career, is there any real... No, sorry, there's a delay then. You carry on.
Yeah, there is a bit of delay. Yeah, I had to build a flamethrower on that. The gag is that these guys are ripping off a security van, and they're dressed as guys digging the road, with a Kango and this big tractor, and they push this truck over and slide it into the wall, but the escape hatch is in the roof, so no one can get out. And they're trying to smash the windscreen with sledgehammers and all this kind of their tools. And they can't get in. And they tell them to get out, and then someone comes running in with a flamethrower and sets fire to it. It all goes up. While these guys are still trapped inside. And that was me. It turned out that the stuntmen didn't want to operate a special effects gag. And I was like, well, that's a bit strange, So they said, would you mind doing it? I said, well, I'm not a stuntman. They said, well, yeah, but you know all about it. You built it. You operated it. I said, yeah, okay. So that's me coming in going, get out of the way, dressed in black with a balaclava and stuff, But they said they'd give me a credit on that, so you didn't get paid any extra. Didn't get stunt man money or anything, but I never did. So, but it was fun to do.
So yeah, I was going to say, looking back at your career, is there any real moments that stands out for you that you think that you're really proud of and you can't believe you got to do? That's something that's very personal to you that you think, yeah, that's mine, and that's like yours to give to the world.
I don't know really. Well, everything I've done, I think I've been quite proud of, because it's been a climbing career, if you like. You're working your way up and learning. Every day is a school day for us. We're still learning. Every time we're asked to do a similar thing, it's always somewhere different, or it's a different angle. You've got to do it like this. You've got to hide that. So we're learning all the time. And I to be honest, no, I don't think there's one thing that really stands out. It's all been fun.
So can you tell us a bit more about, obviously you get to work with cars a lot, so what kind of things do you get to do to cars to make them obviously ready for films?
Well, generally speaking, if we're cannon charging it or whatever, or we take the engines out, take all the oil out, take all the combustibles out of it. We worked on a film called Criminal, a Kevin Costner film, and we had to flip over a few police cars with cannon charges, black powder charges, and I did very similar for another very good friend, supervisor, on Expendables 2 as well. With these great big heavy jeeps to try and sort of flip and stuff, and that was hard because they wouldn't let us test any of the jeeps. But I did actually test a big old car. It was a big American car, and we got it to flip right over and hit on the front and land back on its wheels. That was quite something.
So how many years have you been in the industry now?
Well, I sort of got in special effects from probably early '95, so it's quite a while.
Yeah. And do you remember the very, very first thing you got to work on?
It's still progressing. Something came up there. It's gone. That's all right.
So, do you remember the very first film or TV show you got to work on, and what jobs you got to do?
Yeah, the first one that really stood out was one of Dennis Potter's last scripts he wrote before he died. It was called Cold Lazarus, and the company I was working with back then, they had done the previous one, which was called Karaoke, and it was Albert Finney was the main character, and this one was set in the future. It was 4 1-hour episodes, so they were like kind of mini films, all sort of sci-fi, and we had to build vehicles for it. And that again is how I got into it, because I turned up in that old hot rod. One day they had to blow up Albert Finney's head. Okay, it was on ice, and these people come in, and what they've been doing all the way through is it's a long way in the future. Because he's been on ice, they're getting his memories out. And they're watching his memories of life, and they're like, "Wow, this is what it was like back then, hundreds of years ago." And in the end, somebody blows up his head, and it was supposed to be made of ice. And we did it all with ice, and the head that was there didn't look anything like the prosthetic or his head that was being used, the prosthetic. So the boss said, "Can someone paint it up?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So I'd worked quite closely with a guy at Alienware who was a very good prosthetics effects guy who lives in America now, Martin Astles, great guy. And he showed me how to paint flesh tones. And basically paint everything bright red first. And the boss came back and went, "Oh my God, it's bright red." I said, don't worry, I'll get it down." And I then went out to Cliff at CFX at Pinewood and borrowed some paints and painted it all down, and it looked exactly like the one that they needed. So yeah, I got away with that. It was phew, and we blew that up, and that was the one thing that really stood out to me, because that was my first kind of TV film thing.
Nice. So have you got any more projects in the work that you can tell us about? Anything secret coming up that you're allowed to mention?
Well, nothing really. No, just this TV show we're on at the moment. Which it started in Canada, and we're doing the UK part of it. There's a lot of things in it, and I think it's going to be a really good show. So yeah, it's on IMDb as culprits, but there's not much on there. So yeah, we can't tell you any more than that. But it's I think it's going to be.
Awesome. Well, I know it's just going to be a very quick talk tonight, Doug, because obviously it's Sunday night, and we just wanted to get you on for a quick hour to talk about your career and hear some stories. Because we're going to have you back on the 20th, aren't we?
That's right. Yeah. I look forward to that.
Yeah. So on the 20th of December, we're going to have you on, we'll have me on, we're going to have Dante on, and it's going to be like a free for all of all three of us shooting back off each other. And we've got some big news to come on that as well, haven't we?
Yes. Yeah. That sounds interesting. Yeah, I look forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Doug, for this. I'll make sure I get this uploaded to YouTube, and we get it stuck on Facebook, and we get everyone viewing it. Cool. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, Doug.
Right. I'll speak to you soon. Yeah. All the best. Thanks,
cool. I'll catch you in a bit. Hello, mate.
We're here.
Okay. See ya.